friends, and welcome to my very first attempt and trial at showing you how I critique people's work, plus my own, how I edit, and kind of like rewriting things that we previously wrote. So, this is kind of like a workshop slash, edit with me style series that I would like to start, where basically I'm starting at least with some work that I created back in college. So for me, this is going to be about 2011 to 2014, maybe even 2010 to 2014, because some of them, obviously, I have wrote for classes and then other things I've just written when I wrote them. So yeah. So we're going to start today with a class that I took in 2011 when I was in undergrad. I do have a creative writing minor from my time there, and I took a lot of writing classes. So let's have a little bit of backstory before I dive into the whole work. So welcome, whether you are watching presently or in the future. And I'm so nervous and excited to see how this is going to go. So basically, in 2011, I decided to do this series because I recently rewrote a story I created from this class, and it is now getting published. And that kind of spawned this idea of, what if I rewrote a lot of those because they're really bad? And they were bad at the time too, but my professor was terrible. So this kind of was like, well, maybe I can share these because these are bad works. They're old. And I know I'm a much stronger writer now because I've had better classes since then. I've taken workshops. I've also just grown as a writer. So this is where this comes in. So back in 2011, I took my first fiction writing course and I was so excited. Now, for me at the time, fiction was just like fantasy. So I learned at least that fiction was much more encompassing than just fantasy, which was exciting. But this professor, I just don't think like wanted to be there. I think he just wanted to literally get a paycheck. He did not teach us a single thing that entire semester. So like what am I paying for this class, but it was kind of fun and it got me creative. I explored a lot of different genres. So out of anything that I got out of this class, it was that I was attempting multiple genres. I attempted fantasy, thriller, contemporary, and horror at the very least. I don't know if I have anything else that we'll explore in here, but at least I explored those genres. And he basically wanted us to write short stories. So every week we had a short story due, and we just read them in class in a circle, and we kind of gave feedback. But like he didn't really direct the class, so the feedback was pretty scarce, and it was more like down to did we like it? Did we not like it? Do we feel like something was off? Like nobody ever like swapped papers and like wrote edits. It was just literally a round circle of reading our stories. So yeah, it wasn't very useful in that manner, but I wrote a lot. So that's what we're going to start with. So today I'm actually going to be picking the shortest story that I wrote for that class, which is about a page and a half. He did not want us to write more than 2 pages, and he actively kind of got mad when I wrote a 3-page story. So basically, it was kind of like flash fiction, but he didn't title it that. He didn't explain what that was, and he just wasn't good. So we are here today to be a better college professor than that professor was. We're going to take a contemporary story that I wrote. So I see some people in here. So hello, Kelly. Yes, I mean, I know I'll be fixing my words today. Hopefully you guys will just get something out of it. And thank you. I made that a while ago and then I forgot that I made it. I actually made a couple for a different person, but then they never used it. So I just ended up using it. Zilla, good morning. Thanks. I hope it was a good backstory. The more I am departed from college, the more I'm like, this professor was a joke. I took 2 classes with him. I took a poetry class as well, and that was even worse. Like, he just did not care. He was just like, write what you want, talk whatever you want, and then peace out. We also, oh no, I took not a poetry class. I took this class and I took a nature writing class. So I also have nonfiction work that I can edit ish. That's a little bit different because obviously I'd have to put my mindset back into where I was writing that. But anyway, long story. Diane, hello, good morning, my friend. My CEPs are invaluable. I could imagine that. Yes. And like I said, after I took 2 classes with that and my nature writing course, which was a nonfiction course, was basically like we never had it. Like, it got canceled so much, so it was such a waste of money when you think about paying for college, but I took other classes after his where I was like, "Whoa." I took a poetry class with somebody else. I took a horror writing class, which is where my love for horror came from. And I did so much better, and those classes were later in my journey, and I have much stronger work from those classes, understandably so. Definitely also makes me put into perspective how valuable critique partners are in any capacity for sure. So, while I go through this, I am going to be mostly talking to you guys stream. So I will definitely try to check in the comments, as far as what I'm talking about, what I'm going through, if you guys have questions, but I don't want this to be a super long stream. So I would like to just jump into it. So we are going to start with a piece that is called, when I wrote it, Love is Key. It is an adult contemporary, I guess, or like a new adult contemporary, maybe. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through this so that way, you guys can just listen to the story as well as how it was written. And then I'm going to tear it apart a little bit. And then we'll start the rewrite. Now, the rewrites on everything is probably just intended to show the first page. I'll write like a first page just to get a feel for how I would restart it and what I would want to include. And then I'll probably continue writing the story at some point on my own, but just to get a feel for how this all goes. All right, so this is Love is Key. Don't know if this title would say the same. She was sprawled out on the grass in a small clearing in the woods. The tall oaks and maples surrounded her, creating a small sanctuary away from the industrial reality she lived in. Her legs were curled to the side, her arms were splayed on either side of her body. In her hand, she clutched a metal key, a reminder of why she was there. The sun was slowly making its way above the trees. Her yellow polka dot sundress, was damp with the dew from the ground, but she didn't mind. She was content watching the clouds move along in the sky. The cloud directly overhead reminded her of a dragon, and she began to daydream about a knight preparing to slay the dragon to save a beautiful princess. She had discovered this little clearing 10 years earlier when she was 13. She had been walking in the woods to clear her mind. Her parents had been fighting and she needed to escape, so she walked. She took a different path than usual and stumbled upon the opening. It was perfect. It was almost circular, with a fallen tree trunk ideal for a bench and a thick patch of grass that allowed her to relax and look up at the sky without interruption. She chuckled to herself, knowing that she once again walked away from an issue to come here. Old habits die fast, apparently. Except this time, the issue was different. She wasn't running away from an argument. She was running from her future. It was all so new and exciting and different, and it scared her. Her thoughts continued to swirl in her head, and she continued to lie in the grass, watching the clouds. The sun was nearly overhead now. The crunch of leaves floated in her ears, but she barely flinched. This was her haven, after all. Nothing bothered her here. The crunching stopped as a figure emerged in her peripherals and stooped down to join her. A hand entwined with hers. It was warm, strong, and familiar. Her fingers stroked his palm, feeling the calluses that were emerging from fixing up his new apartment. For minutes they laid there, both staring up at the sky. A woodpecker was the only thing to break the silence. "That one looks like a duck," he finally said, pointing to a cloud. She let out a snort and rolled her eyes. "Not even close. I'm pretty sure that's a pig." He tightened his grip on her hand and pulled it gently, wanting her to come closer. After a few seconds of ignoring this motion, she rolled over onto his chest and looked down at his hazel eyes. His smile broke out as he moved her blonde hair behind her ear. She flushed. She realized in this moment that she wouldn't have to face her future alone. There was no reason to be scared. "I've been doing some thinking," she said, dangling the key in front of his face. He patiently waited for her to continue. "I think I'm ready to move in with you," she said gently as she leaned down and kissed him tenderly on the lips. So, that's the story as it was written. And obviously, as you can probably tell too, there's already some typos which immediately pop out to me, which were not corrected in this class that I took. So definitely, we'll get to those. My first impressions of this story is it's very telling, not showing. I feel like I was trying to convey the sense of trepidation of, this is a really big life change, which also I think I was trying to go for I think we always think about like big life changes of like getting married. So like this is a different kind of step. It's a little bit of a twist, I want to say, on that, of like, oh, it's not that they're getting married, it's that she's just going to move in with him, which is still a big step. And I feel like people don't count that as much. However, I don't feel like the feelings are quite there because the scene isn't as built up. And again, it's very telling. So let's dive into it. And if you guys have any idea, like opinions too, you feel free to share them. And I just noticed too. Hi, Alan. Welcome. We are critiquing some of my old work from 2011. So first and foremost, this narrator is not named at all. And I feel like that could work, but I feel like it's missing something. So when like we look at this very first line, it is just so boring. It's so boring. There's no action. She's just sprawled there. She's not even named. Why did I name her? Who knows? I feel like if we go back, longer in this whole what I've written for this class, I don't feel like a lot of my people are named at all. And it probably has to do with the fact that these are so short. It was only like, up to 2 pages, and there's not much time to build character into this, right? So, yeah, so I would definitely want to change this entire thing. We'll come back when I start to write that about how I would do it, but it's just not great. Also, I would want to fact check too, is oaks and maples, do they grow in the same place, Did I just pull that out of nowhere because those are the only 2 trees I knew? I would just fact check that as well and make sure that whatever trees I have are consistent with what they would be in a thing. Because obviously I come from Pennsylvania, so I know we have them, but are they together? However, I do like this line, creating a small sanctuary away from the industrial reality she lived in. That's really nice. I don't know if right now it actually fits in this whole opening, paragraph, because the rest of the story doesn't actually mirror anything about the industrial life. Like, yes, it's a little quiet little area, but like she doesn't reference being industrial, like the hustle and bustle. So if I was going to keep that line, I would make sure that it ties into something else. And truthfully, I don't know if it does, which is sad because I do really like the line. I just don't know if it works in this context. We get a little bit of like her description, which is good, like how she's laying. But overall, this is just a very, very weak first paragraph, in my opinion. I definitely feel like I would want to start with action. Maybe she will be holding the key and playing with the key instead. And there's not really reference to that until the end. Well, there's one reference that she's dangling the key, down here somewhere, dangling the key in front of his face. And then at some point she does say something about the key. Now I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but yeah, like I feel like this is where the key should be brought in immediately, right? This is the whole point that she's in this clearing, is that she is contemplating, should she move in with him? So I definitely feel like that's where this needs to, come. Oh yeah, there's the key. I'm an idiot. So this needs to be moved up, like here, definitely. I also think I would set up the scene a little bit more after that. So like we start small with her playing with the key, and then moving out to like the larger scene about where she's at, and then kind of bringing in. I definitely get, and I think one thing that we learn in college, at least, or like in any kind of courses, and thank you. Well, I mean, I had a small moment where I just could not find the word key. So, and yeah, and like I said, I don't actually know, are there oaks in Pennsylvania? Let's see. I don't know what I just did. Apparently I didn't even type, are there oaks Pennsylvania? Now you guys can't see this because I am typing in my browser. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, we definitely have oaks up here. That makes sense. So oaks are in the red oak group, including northern red, pin, willow, shumad, scarlet, and shingle oaks. We have very many types of oaks. So I could get a little bit more specific if I'm going to take this as a Pennsylvania setting and get specific into what type of oaks and maples we actually have, because right now this could technically be anywhere where there's woods, right? This is not really telling about where the setting is. So, yeah, so recapping, we're gonna bring up the key immediately. We're gonna flesh out the location a little bit more and show. We're gonna give her a name because this nameless, girl, it's just we don't know how old she is. We don't really know anything about her. She's just very nameless and faceless, and there's just no description. There's lots of description about like her dress and her posture, but nothing about her. I do like, the fact that we get so this is like the paragraph that's trying to bring in a little bit more. Like we get that it's, it's slowly making its way above. So that means it's still pretty early in the day where she's walking out. We also get the dew on the ground. So that obviously gives us a place of time of the day. So I did that well. This, I don't know. I really don't like these. Like she didn't mind. She was content. I have there's too many she's. I also feel like this whole next section, right? We get a little bit of backstory into her life, but it's so dropped in, and I feel like this is such a good opportunity to juxtaposition her fears of moving in with somebody, right? So she's bringing up that her parents would fight a lot and she would run out here to escape. Which means that one, their apartment probably not too far away, or she was talking to him. Who knows where like he is in this, like her partner, but we basically get that she has done this to escape her anxieties and worries and escape fighting. So we could have a little bit more internal dialogue with her being afraid of, like comparing her parents' fightings to like what if moving in makes her makes them fight. Maybe it doesn't make them compatible anymore. And I feel like that's a pretty real fear, especially if you come from any type of like trauma background or just like not a super stable home. So I didn't do that here. I don't think I had the word space to do it because my professor was very, tight. But I think that's the core of our story, right? Is that we are afraid of moving in because our parents did not have a good relationship and it was a very unstable home. That is our story. So this obviously, moving forward needs to be very fleshed out. And then this is so like very statements, like, oh, she took a different path. She did this. Was it. Very, very short. So like I think I would want to weave that in a little bit more into the story, not just have this like info dump paragraph of we had kind of an unstable home and I just kind of stumbled upon it. I would probably make that more paragraphs as well as trying to weave it in a little bit better, like having other things around. Let's see. So again, this whole paragraph sucks. This is just extremely telling. Um, we don't have the word space given that I only had a 2-page minimum. And I like what this is trying to say. It's trying to say it's just trying to tell you like, this is what it is. Here's my issue. But I like this, that again, we're mirroring that she did this as a kid and now something major is happening and she's doing it again. I just want that to be shown more. It's just not a very good paragraph. Okay, here again, her thoughts continue to swirl. Okay, well, what are her thoughts, right? What else is she thinking? This is just telling. We have no idea what's going on in her head except when we tell her. And she's also, been there for quite some time. So the fact that we don't really know what she's thinking of, but we're also meant to believe that she's been there for a while doesn't make sense. So I feel like, again, if we fleshed out in those comparisons to her thoughts to her past and then get him coming, like we can have this really cute, sweet moment where he just joins her without question. Because I do feel like we get some good description down here as far as, like she doesn't feel scared that she hears crunching and she doesn't really like look, but then she kind of knows like when his hand comes to her is like she doesn't even have to look. She knows who it is. He has calluses because he's fixing up the apartment. Like there's just like this really good description, for it not being a lot. And then I really like this cutesy moment too. I feel like them having a joke to kind of ease attention makes sense. And like eventually getting to the part where, I think I'm ready to move in with you. I feel like, for this could just be a little bit more description. We finally get that she has blonde hair, which is nice. But this is told in like what is it? Third person limited. So we're getting it from the girl's point of view. So I feel like if we're gonna introduce the hair, she should maybe be playing with her hair earlier to kind of give that, because otherwise, like, describing her blonde hair so late doesn't really make much sense in my opinion. Again, telling. Also, I didn't mention this, but I noticed at some point too that there was a lot of like past, was it past participle? I'm not going to remember my actual things, but she, okay, so I'll just use this, right? So she had discovered is like really poor writing. You want to make sure like your hads, your words like only make sense if they're in there, but like discovered is your stronger verb. So like stuff like this should be X'd out. So she discovered the clearing. That should just be it, because you're already saying it was 10 years earlier. You don't need these words. Again, having the wrong use of than. So yeah, this should have been covered in my class, but it was not. And again, the professor did nothing. He did not offer any critiques. So like people being critique partners in that class didn't know how to do it. So a lot of these things like now I've learned and how I would, help edit, but back then a lot of that. She was running from her future. She ran. Why do we don't need the was. Um like this is an okay was, right? Even though the sentence was kind of shitty. um so yeah, I wanted to point that out, that we just be careful of those filler words. Make things, stronger. And then, yeah, I think for my last critique on this, it's just this, how we end it. I really like the fact of thinking, I'm ready to move in with you. So I feel like I can also add a little bit more descriptors, maybe to throw people off. Like maybe she's playing with a ring, but she doesn't specify which, hand it's on. So that could maybe make you think that she is like it was a proposal and she's unsure about the proposal. But at the end, I think the last sentence should be, I think I'm ready to move in, or something like that. It might be a stronger sentence, but like I feel like that's where it should end. And I know a lot of people say you shouldn't start with dialogue because dialogue is boring, but it also doesn't really set up the scene for you. But I feel like ending with dialogue is completely fine in my opinion. So, if I would probably reverse this. She leaned in, kissed him, and then said that and ends on that sentence. So yeah, so I feel like we just need way more description. It doesn't really give you a sense of what her fears are other than us telling it. It's a big decision. And I feel like we can also do a little bit of faking out with, her playing with rings, thinking about how her parents' marriage was. So yeah, I think, doing a quick like 20-minute edit or like, ideas for critiquing this is probably all this needs because it's so short. So if you guys have any questions or anything that stuck out to you that you want further clarification on, or if you feel like I might have missed something that you would do, feel free to drop them in. So, because the next step we're going to do is we're going to, start to write a little bit, which is, it's weird. I've never written live before. So, but yeah. So, yeah, overall, I mean, is it the worst story I've ever written? No, it's not good either. And that professor really haunts my dreams sometimes because it's like, how bad were you? Like I said, the nature writing course was like 10 times worse. He offered some critiques at some points, but like it wasn't good. Hello, SS. Welcome. We just went through my critique, so you're just in time to watch me begin my rewrite. And I'm gonna take the silence as we are probably good to move on. So this is what I'm gonna try to do. I don't know if I can. I'm gonna see if I could do something. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to edit the same. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna try to change something and see if I can get both up, but I might not be able to keep both windows up. So we're gonna try this. If not, look at those sleeping babies. Oh. All right. Oops, what did I do? Okay. All right, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do this unless I take myself out of the equation. So what would be better for you guys? Well, okay, this is what I'll do. So if I share my whole screen where put both of them up and kind of compare, I can either do that and I just won't be able to see my own face on the stream, or I could just put my new document up. What would be preferred? Just because, like I said, this is going to be a little bit of working out kinks too, since this is my first time, but um, I don't know if it would be easier to see like the previous story as well as um, the news draft. The only thing, like I said, with that is I'm not going to be able to see my StreamYard. So if you guys are talking to me, that's going to be a downfall. Because otherwise, I'm only going to be able to hold up the new draft. I don't have two monitors. If I had two monitors, this would not be an issue. I thought that was a crow. Oh, yeah, that's my Poe blanket. So I put the crow there on purpose just because I like him. He's a nice little dude. But yeah, no, crow is fake. Puppies are real. There we go. Okay. And if nobody has an opinion, I will just go ahead and share just the main one. And we can just kind of come back and forth, I suppose. All right, well, let's do this then. And if anybody has an extra opinion at some point, let me know. Okay, so we are back here. Okay, so like I said, that whole initial scene starts out relatively weak. We don't have a name. So I'm probably just going to throw a random name out for now, and that might change, but at least we have a face. So I feel like I put a lot of emphasis on names when I am writing. That could just be a me thing, but I don't know. I feel like names just mean a lot. And I feel like you guys might also agree, where it's like some people, when you see them and their name something and you're like, that's your name, it doesn't fit you. So I think that's why like names mean more to me. And I really like when they have more significance. So like our main girl is like timid and maybe like, a little bit more introverted. Like, I don't want to say shy necessarily. We don't necessarily get that, but just like has been through some stuff and kind of very uh not retro, introspective. So let's see. What's popular girls' names? Because I'm just gonna try to pick one. Oh my god, Charlotte. I don't know if I like Charlotte as a name. I don't know if you guys do this, but I tend to pick names like the same name all the time. And I don't realize it, but there's names that I tend to love and they end up in my stories all the time. All right. I think we want to do. How about we'll do, let's see. Oh, yes. Yeah. That's exact. And I think that's why I love it, because, the meanings of the names or something like that, it just adds so much. Yes, it adds an extra layer. Exactly. You said it perfectly. I don't need to repeat it. So let's see. Okay. Oh, this is cute. So I just like real quick search Chloe, and Chloe means green herb. So I mean she likes the forest, but I feel like that's not gonna work. Um Maybe we'll just do Emma for now. So we're gonna start with Emma in the clearing. So remember, like I said, this is also I'm gonna count this as like a new first draft, right? We're completely rewriting the story, so this is a first draft, and this is just how I might write, as well as offer critiques. I should have disclaimed that in the beginning of the video, but this may not work for everybody. My own, critiques might not be agreeable for everybody, and if you were going to edit this story, you might end up with different directions or completely different ideas. So just the disclaimer, but. All right, let's see what we can start off with for our first page. Emily. Okay, so I was going to say Emily, but I use Emily a lot. That was one of my names that I tend to use. I remember writing a story because I have a friend, Emily, too. And I think that's probably why I went with Emma. I'm very basic. Maybe we'll change it so it's not either of those. But yeah, I've used Emily quite a few times, and I'm trying not to use the same names. So I'm also trying not to make it too out there because this is a contemporary novel and I love a lot of names for fantasy like individuals, but this is not. How about Phoebe? I used to love the name Phoebe. What does Phoebe mean, I wonder? Anyway, I'm gonna get way too into that, so let's not do that today. All right, we're gonna go with Phoebe because so I'm not close to Emma, Emily, Ella, whatever that is. All right, so we're gonna start with Phoebe. Phoebe, I feel like is probably a Greek name. It might change, but anyway. So, all right, this is strange. I'm not used to an audience watching me write. Okay. Okay. So like, yeah, I already spelled that wrong. So is it like, and I'm not going to say that this is going to be my best work either as I'm rewriting it, but just to give an idea of how different that opening is. So like the original one was she was sprawled out on the grass in a small clearing in the woods. So now this one really puts you into perspective, right? At least in my opinion. Phoebe played with the cold metal key in her hand, following the grooves and sharp edges as she lay in the dewy grass. Already, I feel like that's 10 times stronger. We have a name now. We have what she's doing and we have where she's doing it. So she's laying in the grass, playing with the key, and, we have a name. All right. So then the next one is so now I think we want to like bring her into the setting, right? So that's what I kind of said is that we kind of want her to be more in the woods. So around her. All right, so this is where we're gonna get into our specifics now. Let's see, Noakes apparently in north central Pennsylvania, there's not many oaks. Oh, black oak. Okay, so we could have some black oaks, red oaks. All right. All right, got the red maple. So I'm not like completely off, but it's just, not as much. I feel like I'm also going to add ferns because I love ferns. So, all right. Let me see. I'll do tall. A hickory, a shabat. Okay, so we're going to say hickory. Red, black. Okay, we're going to go with red chestnut and hickory. And we can fact check this more later. Red, black, and hickory. This is also how I tend to write too, where I'm just like, I second guess where I'm going to go with the sentence. Withered or weathered? Maybe weathered. I feel like we don't need to have little there because bugs are already little. So okay. Like I said, we can add this around and beef it up. But at least I think what I'm trying to showcase is that I'm trying to take what we had previously and just beef up the scene more because we really didn't have much description. It was like, okay, yeah, we kind of get it. Okay, you have a clearing, there's trees around. But hopefully this kind of sets up the setting that like she is alone and she's just observing things around her while also being in her head. Um So I don't have to stay too long on this. Like I said, I'll probably go back and add some more details eventually, but I want to kind of move this around because I'm only going to be working on one page for you guys. So the next big thing that, while this is probably going to come later, I want to just dabble into starting the juxtaposition of her parents and her, right? Or her parents and her partner. So this will probably again come a little bit later. I'd probably still flesh out the story a little bit more, add some of her thoughts in. But for this purpose for today, just to kind of show you how I might start to build that up, I want to just jump into that and then kind of take any questions or maybe talk a little bit with you guys after this. So let's see, how would I want to start this without writing? I do tend to write chronologically, like, so I'll start from the beginning to the end. I think doing this out of order is a little bit different for me, but we're gonna roll with it just to kind of help you guys get where I'm trying to come from. All right, so I think we really start, which actually isn't that far away, but when we start watching the clouds, right? Uh, we're gonna come back to the sun. I'm not gonna bother with the sun right now because I feel like I probably would have said that earlier. What did I say? Did I say before it was a duck? Yeah, so we're not going to have it look like a duck. What do you guys see? What's something that you feel like you would look for in a cloud? I feel like an otter comes to mind, which is probably because if you guys have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you probably the new Guardians of the Galaxy. When I left the theater, I was like so convinced that there was an otter in the clouds. And I was like, oh no. So, I mean, I was going to go with that too, for real. I just feel like a dragon is so detailed. A cowboy cloud. Oh, I mean, I like that. Maybe we could do a cowboy hat. I like that. But I feel like a dragon is definitely the first thing that comes to mind for me all the time. All right, so how do we describe a cowboy hat? Um, Rounded top. Listen, I've never described a cowboy hat, so we might have to tweak this a little bit more. Oh, I need this. Goodbye. Okay. Um, I feel like actually 2SS, cowboy, I feel like it actually fits, I feel like, if we wanna compare the partner maybe to a cowboy at some point, in her inner musings here. So I'm gonna just roll with that real quick and just kinda use that as like, where her thoughts are kinda continuing. Okay, so Phoebe looked beyond the treetops to the clouds, big and fluffy in the sky. She looked at one that was moseying by and saw its rounded top with a disc-like shape underneath, almost like a cowboy hat. Um, So actually, we could go two directions. We could either actually use the cowboy hat to bring back a memory of her parents, or we could use the cowboy to um, maybe compare her partner. However, I think getting into this now that I'm like talking it out loud, I feel like comparing to her parents actually might be a good idea here. And then maybe after we could compare her partner. So thanks. All right. So yeah. So first we're gonna hit you with the trauma, and then we're gonna. So no. So I think, like I said, I'm kind of making this up to go as I go along. Obviously this is like a young adult, so over 18, but probably still living with her parents right now, and just living in a home. At least is where I'm taking it. Like I said, the original story did not have all this background, so I'm adding this as I go, and this is how I would edit it to make it stronger, right? So, yeah, I mean, what story of mine doesn't have some sort of trauma in it? But the way that I would be rewriting this is like her backstory is that her, maybe it wasn't like abusive or anything, but her parents fought a lot and it just wasn't stable because who knew, like, walking on eggshells, like any moment her parents might start a fight. So she still lives there, but like also moving into maybe some like, if we think about how people function. So you're going to be leaving one home that is kind of unstable and moving out with somebody else who is maybe a stability point for you, right? Like your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner. That could be very big, and it could be very triggering. So that is what I would want to convey, is that, like that this is kind of triggering for her, like that she's thinking of her past and how having a home where it was unstable and maybe they shouldn't have lived together, but maybe they stayed together for the kids, or whatever the case is. And now her thinking about leaving, her home to go live with her boyfriend, but being unsure of, like, is this going to be the right decision? Like, what if we move in and we just fight all the time? Like, what if this like perfect little happy place that I've set up for myself with him is no longer what it's going to be? So obviously that's, if I was going to try to get that out of that first story, I don't think anybody would have been like, "Oh wow, look at the depth in this." So that's what I would be trying to recreate. Obviously not within 2 pages. This would end up being, I always try to go, like, the industry standard is usually up to 5,000 words. So the story would end up being somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 words at the end. Okay. With that being said, so let's give her a little bit more backstory here. Okay. So okay, let's see. Um Okay, so this is contemporary, so I'm going to use some contemporary features in here, I think. But I tend not to do too much pop culture when I personally write. However, I think this is gonna um, it's gonna pull it together. So anybody who loves this might appreciate this. I can't remember how they spell Jesse. Is it Jesse with an I or Jesse just with an E? Anyway. I'm also, as I write this too, as much as I feel like maybe one of the reasons I didn't give a name initially is because I feel like this would could be very strong being first person. So I'm not gonna say that even though I'm doing this now for you guys, I might not change it to first person. And maybe that's why, I didn't I wouldn't have given her name immediately. I feel like in a flashback like this, um, because I'm just thinking like Phoebe's mom, I don't know. If for me, like I really want to go right now until it wasn't. Mom did X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna keep it in third person, but I may end up changing that when I actually go back and finish this. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I don't know. I try to give that breaks for emphasis. So, like I said, I know I am doing this live, and again, I would still need to re-edit all of this, but I appreciate the compliment for me trying this, blindsided. I really, guys, did not have much of a plan going into this. This is literally like how I would sit down and try to edit something without thinking much of it beforehand. So it is definitely a challenge, and it's an experiment for not just you guys, but also for me. I also feel like I don't know if I would end up. I feel like that looks better to me, but I may go back. I don't know how we're gonna do it yet. Okay, as I say, I might add some dialogue in here. We're almost done with the first page, so I'm not sure how much I would want to do, but basically, I would probably flesh the scene out a little bit more too, where I would have them maybe like really getting into that moment of like, this is fighting, right? Like, it's something over something mundane, it's something simple, but like relatively real for some people who experience it. Like, okay, yeah, like Phoebe wants candy and her dad's being like, no, it's too late. And then her mom gets mad and then they start fighting. So that's what I'm trying to convey. And then eventually we'll get down to, Phoebe coming back into the clearing and kind of thinking about like, what if that happens to me? So that's where we're trying to get to. If I'm probably not, we're at the 49-minute mark. So I'd like I was hoping to go for maybe an hour today. So I probably won't get too much more, but yeah, we'll do for at least another 5 minutes of kind of writing. Okay, so some of her candy. Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick add in dialogue. Unless you guys are interested in seeing dialogue, I don't know. Are you guys? Because I feel like people struggle with dialogue, so maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should just add the dialogue in for benefit. All right. Oops, did not do it. Diane, you want to be in my story? I don't know if you're still here. I'm going to name Mom Diane. So Diane and Adam, I see, because those are the two names that immediately came to me. So Diane and Adam, welcome. You're my parents now. Well, you're Phoebe's parents, not my parents. Also, you guys can determine, what kind of people you want to be. I mean, you can have, if this was like you guys rewriting the story, right? Do you want people cursing? That could be very real for a lot of, bickering parents. Or do you want to kind of keep it a little bit more PG? It that would also depend and determine on if you're going to submit it. So for my sake, I'm not going to end up dropping any like F bombs or anything in this story, mostly because I feel like that could be very off putting if we're writing a contemporary that does have a happy ending and, it's a little bit harsher. If I was maybe writing a full hard hitting contemporary book, then I might, I know that me too, because that's exactly where I want to go with it is like, oh yeah, they're full on like gonna, go at it. I think it definitely is realistic. I also think though too, it depends on the nature. I feel like more realistic is probably people are gonna end up cursing, and maybe I'll add a curse or two. I don't think I'm gonna drop any F bombs. I should clarify. Um, that should be it. And thank you, Adam. All right, let's see. All right, so I could go on a little bit more with the dialogue. We're obviously at our second page. So what I'm gonna just do is, I would add more into this, but also, like I said, I would want to tie back into it. So eventually, like I would kind of have this scene play out just a little bit more. Maybe Phoebe would be crying after this, and then we bring it back, right? We bring it back to the present. So do they call it teeth on a key? Wow, teeth on a key. Teeth on key? What is that? What they call it? Is the teeth? What? What are those little like things on a key? Edge, other than edges. Um, the blade. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to call it the edge of the blade. I don't know. That just seems boring. I feel like we should call them teeth. Like, am I making this up though, or is this like an Appalachia thing? Because I tried to Google it and nothing came up. Um, we'll call it teeth, I guess. Call them teeth. Thank you guys for the encouragement. People are going to be reading this and be like, what the hell is she talking about? Let's see. I need another boy's name, guys. I mean, Alan was here earlier. I could use Alan in this story. All right, maybe we'll just do that, unless somebody else has a better name. Include everybody in here. Clyde. Ew. Kelly, get out of here. we want we want him to be like a good dude. And I feel like Brad and Clyde just give off the wrong impression. Also, I can't use Clyde. I have a backstory to the name Clyde, and I can't share it on YouTube. So we're just not going to get into that right now. But Lauren, oh, that's different. Kyle, God, you guys. I can't use Steve either. Steve's my stepdad, so that's a weird one. But thank you for the egg. Yeah, I'm glad you're loving this. All right, we'll go with Alan for now, but I'm gonna look into Lauren because I kind of like that name. But it does sound a little bit more fantasy to me too. So, okay, good moments with Alan were all Phoebe had. No, Clyde was not. It's not an ex-boyfriend. Actually has nothing to do with anybody that I have like a relationship with in any capacity, but was more of a code name for somebody in college, actually. So that's where I will leave it. Ma'am, we're almost done here. Okay. All right. This will be tighter. Okay. So we're going to come to the end. We're almost at our hour. So basically, it's a very rough go of one page. One page is not a lot of words. Actually, I was going to say, what is word count? Yeah. So we only wrote 347 words, and clearly we didn't get very far in the story. Our goal would be, will you stop? Our goal would be between 1,000 and 5,000. I feel like this would be a good like 3,000 word story in the end. So from comparing to what we had, right, we really didn't have much of a backstory. Like we had an implied backstory. We had a lot of telling. We didn't really have an idea of where or like how I just, how we got to where we were. So we gonna see Phoebe next week, same time, same place. Do you mean like, am I gonna come back next Monday and do this again? Because probably the answer is no, I have to work. But I mean, if this is, I don't know. I mean, my goal was gonna be to do this series like with a new story well, I don't want to say every month, but eventually, like probably over the summer, I could probably do once a month as the fall comes along. I don't know how much I'll be, able to do that. But my goal for next month was actually going to be editing. I'm debating. I have two. I have a thriller / horror, and I have a fantasy psychological, which I would be taking from psychological into horror. So I have those two to pick from. Maybe I'll even do a poll if you guys are interested on my community tab to kind of see where it goes. But yeah, I have a day job. Sorry, guys. So I won't be back next week. But if you guys are interested to continue seeing this, I mean, maybe I could do another live where I continue the story. This was definitely it's a lot of pressure because I didn't plot this ahead of time. I literally just did it for the hell of it today, just being like, okay, let's wing it. Let's see how this would go. So I probably would be a lot slower writing today than if I actually plotted things out. But yeah, I guess, yeah, polls are fun. Okay, I'll put a poll up and see what you guys would want me to edit next. I have quite a few. That fiction document that I started with has multiple stories in there. But all right, so to kind of wrap it up, so the main things I had an issue with in my original story was there was more telling than showing. We didn't have any real personalization of the main character, and we kind of dropped a backstory really quick without really fleshing it out and kind of connecting it to our current day person. So what I try to do is I try to immediately set up the scene a little bit better. If I'm going to continue the story, I'm going to flesh this out even more. I love details and I love the woods. Woods comes up in so much of my writing because that's where I spent a lot of my time as a kid. And, you know, not that I would run away from fighting because I didn't really live with both of my parents, but I would go off and explore and make stories in the woods all the time, as well as kind of like, you know, would imagine myself like living out in the wild, like when things got rough. So that's where a little bit of my personal life comes into this story, is this idea of like the woods being your sanctuary, because it was mine. So I'd really want to play up like how meaningful this area is. And this description, I would say, is probably a page long if it's going to be good. And then I would have her thoughts come in. So in this little space here, you know, I would really put in her inner thoughts about, you know, what brought her to the woods today, and, you know, what she's worried about. And we might hint at, you know, that's where she might play with her ring a little bit and hint that Alan asked her a pretty important question. And then we would get to her being like, okay, I'm gonna get distracted by the clouds, but then all of a sudden I get thrown into this memory, and we're gonna flesh that out. Okay. So a lot of this is gonna be a little bit more in depth. The scene with her family, I would probably give a little bit more details to as well. And then eventually, you know, she's going to connect it back to Alan. This is a pretty crappy sentence, and you know, in general, this needs a lot more description of, you know, to try to. I don't want to tell that she is nervous to move in with him, but I want to convey that, you know, she's thinking of a life with him and being worried that all of the things her parents did, they're also going to do. And then eventually, I'll bring Alan coming to find her, and maybe having a little bit more conversation between them about, like, you know, they can start with that, you know, oh yeah, that one looks like a duck, and she'd be like, no, that's definitely a pig, like, what are you talking about? And then him saying, you know, maybe her saying like, how did you find me? And he's just like, you told me where to go all the time. So that's how I would probably continue and finish the story. And like I said, I would probably end the story then with her saying, oh, excuse me, with her saying, hey, I want to move in with you, like, I want to take this step. So yeah, so that was me trying to live edit my first story. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel? Do you have any other feedback, or would you guys do anything different? Hi Sheridan, how are you? So apologies. We're going to be ending shortly, but for anybody joining in late or missing any parts, this is obviously going to stay up live, or it's going to stay up as a playback on my channel. And I will be hopefully having another one next month. It's probably going to be a nighttime one, so I'm going to probably be aiming for a 7 p.m. time next month at some point. And thank you. What are you trying to say? It's so good too. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it was. Like I said, I know that editing is not the same for everybody. And I actually did a little bit differently than I would normally. I would probably write the story more linear without skipping parts, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys how I would try to beef up areas. So yeah, if there's anything that I didn't answer, since I'll probably be signing off in just a few seconds, feel free to comment on the video, or you can DM me on Instagram. I am going to be back next month at least with a nighttime one, and I will be, you know, be on the lookout for a poll. I will be posting a poll on my community tab maybe by the end of the week to determine what genre I'll be critiquing next month. But thank you for sticking this out with me as I'm kind of fumbling my way towards figuring out how to do this live. And I hope I'll make a plan a little bit ahead of time next time too, to figure out like what I'm going to hit next time. So that way it's a little bit smoother when I'm coming to the first page rewrite. So yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and kind of getting a glimpse into how I function as a writer. I feel like it's pretty spot on, because I'm always like, oh, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that, or I get distracted by things. So like the names may stay, they may not stay. I kind of like using your guys' names if you're cool with it, but maybe we'll change them. And thank you guys so much. So that's all I really have for today. If you are interested in my short story that's going to be published in the Stygian collection, pre-order link is down below. That is from a story that I wrote in this class, and it is much more fleshed out and much more put together than that one is. And maybe even I can show you guys in a future stream separate from this series, but maybe I can show you once the book is out, like how the story started. That might be fun. So also Sheridan is also in that collection too. So even more, go pre-order it or, buy it when you can. So thank you guys and appreciate you all for coming in. So, all right. Have a great week and happy Juneteenth for the people in the States. So bye guys.